Hello and greetings. Today I will be doing a video on why I use Arch Linux. I will be doing a follow-up video on why I use the i3 window manager. However, today I'll be focusing on why I use Arch as my distribution of choice. And my first reason is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And this is the motto of Arch Linux, is to just keep it simple. Don't install anything you don't need. Keep the bloat out. Keep it simple. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be easy to use for the average user. I mean, Arch Linux is built up from a command line. But that is the main thing. That is how it stays simple. Is that you only, in the sense that you only put what you put on it, and nothing else, nothing more. And I have four other reasons, and I do believe that each one of them can be tied into this first one, and it will be almost the same for why I use the i3 window manager. So without further ado, I'll bring up my next reason is the Arch repositories plus the AUR. The Arch main repositories, the main ones that it comes with, the ones that Arch team maintains, they are big. They are big repositories, and there's a lot in there. However, if you can't find what you're looking for in the main Arch repositories, the chances are you will find it in the Arch user repository, or the AUR. The AUR is a community-maintained repository for Arch Linux, and Arch-based distributions can access it too, such as Manjaro and Antergos and the like. From my experience, other distributions have pretty big repositories, like Debian, Fedora, OpenSUSE, and the like. However, with looking for third-party applications, I found it to be the easiest in Arch Linux with the use of the Arch user repository. That, and when I looked for let's say third-party applications in other distributions, I would run into missing dependencies, dependency cycles, etc., etc. And I haven't run into that in Arch yet. And it simplifies things to the point where if I'm looking for a particular piece of software, I've only got to look one of two places, either in the main repositories or in the AUR. And one app that I will say has simplified things for me is a neat little command line tool called Yay. And this is available in the AUR. You will have to install this the Arch way through the AUR. However, once you get this installed, and I might do videos on that later on down the road, how to install things the Arch way and how to get it all set up and whatnot. However, for now, if you look at this Yay, let's say I'm looking for a particular application, Google, Chrome. Well, I just type in Yay, followed by what I'm looking for, keywords that I know is in the program's name, hit enter, then bam, it gives me a list of things to install. And as you could tell, it's also looking, it looks in the AUR, but it will also look in the main repositories. See, Yay is like they call it a wrapper, so like it can use Pac-Man as well, your regular package manager. And so now like I got this list, and you see how it's numbered on the side? All I had to do is punch in the number or numbers of what I want to install, and it'll go ahead and install that for you. And um, sometimes you might run into an issue when it's building a certain app, but for the most part, I've had pretty good luck with Yay. I'll just get out of that right now because I do have Chrome already installed. Um, that to me brings us back to Kiss because it makes it so I don't have to go PPA hunting or hunting for a third-party repository and hoping that this person maintains it. Um, it 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 simplifies it for me because the most that I will have to do for the most part is to run a quick internet search to find maybe the package name of what I'm looking for. Um, and then once I have the package name, search for it in the main repos or in the AUR. And then boom, I got it. I got that piece of software. And that to me is a major step up from what I've been doing in other distributions, and it simplifies things to no end for in my opinion. Um, my next reason for using Arch Linux is control. Now, Arch Linux allows the user to have total control over his or her system. By providing this kind of control, it makes it easier in many ways to troubleshoot issues. So, for example, I built this system up from scratch, which means that I installed the base system, I followed ArchWiki, installed the base system, I installed the display manager, I installed the desktop environment, and so and I installed all the applications on it. And so what that means is that if something goes wrong with it, I know what components are on it. I know at least where to go to start looking for the solution. And that is a major plus. However, I think that having that kind of control over your system is also very good in a sense that there's no bloat on it, right? Like everything's on there is on there because you put it there and it has a purpose. And that to me is going back to KISS, keep it simple. Um, Other distributions I install it, and like a lot of times I don't know what's on it, so if something goes wrong, I don't know where to look or yada yada yada. Actually installing Arch Linux will help you in troubleshooting other distributions because you will have a better idea of how the system was put together and where to look to find the solution to the problem that particular distribution is looking for. And yeah, that's taking it back to keep it simple, and again, keeping it simple doesn't always mean user friendly in depending on how you define that term. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think having control over your system like that is a very good thing, and um, so that brings me to my next reason, which is Arch Linux is a rolling release, and this might be a double-edged sword for some people, and some people might disagree with me on this. It might not always be an advantage for your use case. However, having having bleeding edge software on your system might lead to instability. It might lead to bugs. Um, However, it does simplify things for me in the sense that without point releases for say Arch Linux, I don't have to worry about wiping my hard drive down the line to perform an upgrade. Um, and that's not to say that these other distributions aren't doing a good job of providing upgrade um, processes or upgrade tools. However, from my experience, many of them are kind of buggy, and once I was done upgrading it to the next point version in the distribution itself, without formatting the hard drive and reinstalling, it always led to bugs and quirkinesses, and I always ended up wiping the drive and installing the upgrade that way anyway, doing a fresh install anyway. With Arch Linux, with the rolling release model, I just install it and it just keeps me up to date on every package when it comes out. No point releases, no having to wipe my system every time there's a point release. It just is what it is, and it just updates as it goes. And I haven't had to reinstall my Arch system, knock on wood, since I installed it when I got this computer. Um, at the beginning of the month, and the beginning of this month, January, and I think there's something to be said for that. Um, but that's just my personal preference. That is completely my opinion, my for my workflow. Um, Again, use what works for you. Would I put Arch on my personal home server? Yes, I would. Would I put it on somebody else's personal server or somebody's business server? No, no. And I wouldn't if unless you're willing to be prepared to maintain it for the rest of its existence and or yours. Um, However, for my use case, having a rolling release and I will be maintaining my own systems anyway, it works fine for me. Um, but again, that's my personal preference. That's my personal use case. Um, and again, you could disagree with that point, and that's fine. And that brings me to my next point: is that installing Arch Linux from scratch, from the command line. I learned a ton, and I mean a ton of stuff. And there's some that can argue that you learn even more by installing an operating system like Gentoo, which is you compile everything from the source code, and Arch Linux is for the most part binary. The base system is, and the Arch repos are binary by nature. Um, while Gentoo, you compile everything from the source code. Um, I would say that Arch Linux is, and I know I might get a lot of hate for this, I would say that Arch Linux is like Gentoo for people who want to have a life. And the reason I say that is because with Arch Linux being it binary based, what that means is that when you install software, it just installs, downloads it, and installs. With Gentoo, you have to compile everything from source code, which compile times can be a pain. And if you don't have the time to maintain a Gentoo system or to install it, Arch Linux is a good alternative if you want to build your system from scratch but also have time to do other things with life. And don't get me wrong, Gentoo is a good distribution. I'm not knocking it. And I've tried it. But for my particular use case, I can't see it being too practical. And I would say that if you um, want time to be able to use your system and to do other things with life, I would say Arch Linux is your way to go. Um, yes, like I was saying, um, if you would like to take advantage of Arch Linux, the other things that I've mentioned, the other things I mentioned here, there are other distributions you could use that bring the power of Arch Linux to the average user. I mean, if you don't have the time or the patience to learn how to install it from the command line, there are other distributions such as Manjaro that is based on Arch Linux that makes a lot of these things a lot easier for the average user. And I mean, in conclusion, I hope that people will be able to learn from this information. This is in no way me trying to force people to use the same distribution that I use or the same desktop environment that I use. You use what works for you, for your purposes. Um, these are just my opinions. These are my from my experience, and I will be curious to read the comments below as to why you use what you use. And if you agree with me or not, I mean, that's fine. Um, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Um, thank you for sticking around and have a great day.